For decades, Iran's biggest strategic advantage was geography, the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway through which nearly 20% of the world's oil and gas supplies pass every day. Whenever tensions rose in the Middle East, Tehran could threaten global energy markets. But today, Iran is facing a different problem. Trump's naval blockade is choking Iran's oil exports, draining billions of dollars from Tehran's coffers and creating a new battleground in the ongoing Iran-US conflict. So how severe is the damage? Can Iran withstand the pressure? And why is the fate of Lebanon and Hezbollah now becoming part of the same conflict? Let's explain. When the Iran-US conflict escalated earlier this year, Tehran initially appeared to have an advantage. The disruption in the Strait of Hormuz sent oil prices soaring. Iranian crude was selling above $90 a barrel and occasionally crossed the $100 mark. With global markets nervous and regional supplies disrupted, Iran continued exporting oil and earning massive revenues. But then came America's response. On April 13th, the United States launched what officials described as a counter-blockade. US naval forces began intercepting and restricting vessels linked to Iranian trade while allowing other commercial shipping to continue. The objective was simple. Don't shut the Strait of Hormuz, instead isolate Iran economically, and the results have been dramatic. According to shipping intelligence firms Kpler and Vortexa, Iran's crude oil exports have collapsed to their lowest level in at least 6 years. In March, Iran was exporting nearly 1.9 million barrels of oil every day. By April, exports had already fallen to 1.34 million barrels. And in May, exports plunged even further to just 209,000 to 300,000 barrels a day. That's an almost 90% decline in just 2 months. For a country heavily dependent on oil sales, that is a financial shock Tehran cannot ignore. And the impact becomes even clearer when you look at the money. At March export levels, Iran was earning an estimated $5.13 billion in oil revenue every month. By April, that figure had dropped to around $3.6 billion. And in May, revenues fell to just $837 million. In other words, Tehran has potentially lost nearly $5.8 billion in expected oil income over April and May alone. The problem isn't that Iran has stopped producing oil. The problem is that it cannot move enough oil to market. Millions of barrels are now sitting aboard tankers, waiting for buyers or export opportunities. And even China, Iran's biggest customer, has started reducing purchases as demand weakens and refining margins come under pressure. The economic squeeze is now becoming the central battlefield in this conflict, which is why control of the Strait of Hormuz has emerged as the biggest issue in negotiations between Tehran and Washington. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Iran and Oman will jointly manage the strategic waterway and insists Tehran will not give up its influence over the route. But Araghchi has also expanded the scope of the conflict. Iran has reaffirmed support for its Lebanese ally Hezbollah and demanded that Israel withdraw from southern Lebanon.
We do not see the fate of Iran's war with the United States and Israel as separate from the fate of the war in Lebanon. They are connected.
That statement is significant because Iran is now linking any future agreement with Washington to developments in Lebanon and the conflict involving Hezbollah and Israel. In other words, the negotiations are no longer just about oil exports, sanctions, or Iran's nuclear program. They are increasingly about the future security architecture of the entire region. And despite ongoing talks, a comprehensive agreement remains far from reach. For years, Iran used the Strait of Hormuz as leverage against the world. Today, the United States is trying to use that same region to squeeze Iran's economy. The numbers show the pressure is growing. Oil exports have crashed, billions of dollars in revenue have disappeared, and the question now is whether Tehran can withstand the economic pain long enough to secure a deal on its own terms, or whether America's blockade will force Iran into major concessions. That battle may ultimately determine not just the future of Iran, but the future of stability across the Middle East.